All right, thank you, Chad. Again, my name is Greg Crawford. I'm the state archivist at the Library of Virginia. I am also, as in this position, chairperson of the State Historical Records Advisory Board, commonly known as SHRAB. And SHRAB was set up in the mid '70s to assist cultural institutions, local archives, museums with the preserving and making accessible the valuable historical records that are in all of your collections. And so today we're offering a video webinar in regards to finding aids and and how finding aids can be beneficial in helping you making your records accessible to the public. Uh, the group we're honored to be joined by the Archival Resources of the Virginias, and this has been a collaboration of institutions in the Commonwealth. Library of Virginia is a part of this group as far as creating finding aids, way of creating finding aids and making them stored in a one-stop place. I'm going to allow our presenters to explain more about that. We are joined by Margaret Truman Kidd, Senior Curator for Health Sciences, Special Collections Archives at VCU, and Kira Dietz, Assistant Director, Special Collections and University Archives at Virginia Tech. So both serve on the ARVAS Tech and Outreach team and the Governance Board. So we're glad that they could join us to talk to you all about ARVAS. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Kira and Margaret.
All right, y'all bear with me for a second. I'm going to share my screen. All right.
Yay, it works.
Perfect. So welcome everybody again. My name's Margaret Turman Kidd and my partner in crime here, Kira Dietz. We are with Archival Resources of the Virginias. And first thing we want to do is tell you a little bit about who we are. So Archival Resources of the Virginias is a consolidated database of finding aids that provides information about the vast array of materials, manuscripts, archival materials that are housed in Virginia and West Virginia. So a little bit of background about us. We were originally called Virginia Heritage, and the idea for Virginia Heritage emerged from a VIVA meeting, which is the Virtual Library of Virginia meeting of the Special Collections group in 1997. And that committee's goal was to make all of these unique resources of its member institutions more widely accessible. And the group decided that creating a union database of finding aids would be a perfect way to accomplish this. And the University of Virginia had recently participated in the American Heritage Project, which was a shared database of finding aids describing collections documenting American history and culture. So drawing from UVA's experience with that, the committee developed the Virginia Heritage Project. And so by April 2000, the NEH awarded the project a $250,000 grant. And in June of 2001, there were 11 participating institutions and over 1,600 finding aids were available in the Virginia Heritage Database. They did a kind of the trainer model where they trained some folks and then they went out and trained other institutions around the state to be able to encode their finding aids in the EAD format so that they could be uploaded. And we won an award from Solinet, which is now Lyrasis, for Outstanding Library Program Award for Preservation of Electronic Information 2003. And so fast forward to 2020. And that was the year that we accepted our first member from West Virginia. And we decided that at that time that it was time for a name change, one that would encompass this new phase for us. So we rebranded as the Archival Resources of the Virginias, complete with our new logo, which was made by our current chair, Karen King. So I think she did a fantastic job. So thank you, Karen. Want to give you a shout out for that. And we hope to be able to share these slides with you after the fact. So there's some things that you can click through, and we have a handy dandy little timeline of ARVAS history that you can go back to.
And as Margaret said, fast forward. So somewhere in the middle of all of this, Margaret and I both got on board and involved with ARVAS in various capacities at our own institutions. For context, I came to Virginia Tech in 2009 and in the role of acquisitions and processing archivist. So lo and behold, my job was to create finding aids, and I had to learn how that was being done here at Virginia Tech and how those contributions were making their way into ARVAS. And over time, that has shifted to me taking on different roles in ARVAS and wanting to be more engaged and trying to help other people who maybe don't have the same resources try to get their finding aids out there. So what is it that we've been doing over the last 25 years in ARVAS? Obviously, our main purpose is to aggregate. Over the years, we've offered different kinds of support in different ways to do that. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the kind of support we offer now in a moment. But our goal is and has really always been, and it remains going forward, to connect researchers and those of us who are working in archives and libraries with collections, with materials to, connect those things. How can we help researchers and people who are interested in learning more find those collection materials that are in Virginia and West Virginia? And how we've done that over time has shifted quite a bit, but I would like to say that I think it's the result of us being actively engaged in how we do this work. I'm going to say we a lot today, and that is a large group of people. If not for UVA, Margaret and I are neither of us are at UVA, but UVA is our technical home for Virginia Heritage for ARVAS. If we did not have UVA's support, we would be very lost. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is dependent on that and the contributions that UVA makes to this partnership. So really, obviously, one of the goals was moving beyond the 11 institutions who originally participated in the grant. And as Margaret said, we are now at over 56 people, or 56 member institutions rather. And it kind of happens in different ways. We have some institutions that have been consistently active in putting up finding aids and adding content to ARVAS. We have members that were early adopters, but maybe their circumstances have changed, the resources at the institution have changed, and they may not be active now. And we are almost always onboarding new members who are interested in contributing. And we kind of use the word contributors, we kind of use the word members, we kind of use the word institutions and organizations. We do have structure, and we're going to talk about what that structure is for our organization, but this is not a thing that you have to pay to play. So we are kind of fast and loose with the terminology we use. Sometimes we're partners, members, collaborators. We haven't necessarily settled on one term that defines the organizations that contribute to ARVAS. So some of the things we've been doing, right? We've developed a process for getting finding aids out there. And the first way we do that goes all the way back to our origins and involves encoding things with a note tab clip library. That's still a process that many of our organizations use. We still support that. We can still help onboard people and offer training to do that. We do also now have a harvesting process for institutions who are using archive space. For those of you not familiar, archive space is a major open source archival management software that lots of institutions around the country and beyond use. So we do have a harvesting process thanks to UVA. If you have a public interface for archive space, we can pull your finding aids right out of there and pull them into ARVAS. And then in the last few years, I've worked on a little side project because a lot of my work around helping with ARVAS has been related to technology, which is similar to NoteTab, but kind of different, and is designed to help institutions who may have limited resources. If you have information about collections that exist in some form, I've created a Google form, and I can show you all that later, where you can copy and paste information you have into that form, and I can help you get that into an EAD finding aid that you can then upload to ARVAS. I will point out that at this point in time, ARVAS only supports EAD encoded archival description. So we have a lot of ways to try and help you convert content you might have into that pathway. So we've gone from one main pathway to 3 pathways to getting your content in. And I will say it doesn't necessarily stop there. We'll talk a lot today about how we're interested in hearing about your situations, how we can problem solve. We've worked with individual institutions to come up with solutions that work for them, whether they are short-term solutions with a long-term goal or just trying to create one easy access point. So one of the other things I'll mention is some of our more recent changes. When the whole system began, we had some teams that reported up to governance, and there was one focused on outreach and education in that train the trainer model, one focused on technology. And over time, we've sort of shifted. Margaret and I found ourselves working more and more together, me doing technology and her doing outreach. And we sort of merged ourselves in the last couple of years. And it's important to emphasize that ARVAS is an all-volunteer organization. That's also something you'll hear us talk about a lot today. So one of the things we've also done more recently is sort of in merging those teams rather than having standing teams for technology and outreach, developing a pool of volunteers from our larger membership of people who might be willing to help on projects when those projects arise. And we've also kind of put together a little executive team, which is our chair, Karen, and our chair-elect or co-chair, junior co-chair, I don't remember what terminology we use anymore, Katie, and then Margaret and I, and then we fit into our larger governance group as well. So we've been kind of changing the structure a little bit the last few years, and we developed some principles of community that we abide by and share. We're also trying our best to be part of larger conversations. There are other aggregators, regional aggregators or state aggregators around the country. In the last few years, there have been some interesting conversations among those groups about how we can participate in something bigger if something bigger were to come along. There is not a national aggregator at this point in time, but there have been a lot of movements in and discussion about how to do that. So all that to say, we are trying to also be aware of larger conversations and think about those. Okay, so I mentioned some of our workflows. Things we do kind of offer at this point is consulting, right? We realize that not everybody has the same resources and skills. So while our pool of volunteers can't do everything for you, Margaret and I are happy to meet with individuals, learn about what information you have at your institution and work on solutions, whether that's creating one record that links to other resources that you already have, or thinking about how you can find support or help to do a bigger project. How it is, do you need help in coding or learning about EAD? We can help you with all kinds of those things. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how you can get involved later. And then the last thing I want to mention in terms of what we're doing now is we're really about building community, right? Historically, we've held some information sessions, and I will actually give you all, we have a link that I can give you all to the recordings of those. So we used to have a series of talks where people might come and talk about a shortcut they found to get their content into archive space. Or they might come and talk about why they are involved or members or things like that. So we have had these past information sessions. And the other thing that we sometimes do, because it's recurring but not always consistent, are town halls. And we've had in-person town halls where we've invited people from member institutions to come, and we've kind of talked about, kind of given a state of an overview of things. And we've also talked about what is it that we see as challenges, what are the things that we would like to see happen next, you know, and that kind of thing. So there is not currently a town hall scheduled this year, but there is a conversation that we may consider one this year. So if that were to happen, it would probably be virtual, and we would be happy to have people join us. So if and when that gets scheduled, we will happily share information. And then I'll just talk a little bit about what's next, right? Some of this is stuff that's in action, some of it is things that we're doing, and some of it is aspirational because, again, we are all volunteers, so we have dreams of what we would like to do, but that doesn't mean it's always possible. So like I said, we are here to help onboard and support new contributors. If you're not sure and you just want to learn more, even beyond what Margaret and I talk about today, please do reach out to us. We know not everyone has the same resources. There's not an expectation of participation if you just want to have a conversation. Sometimes the timing is all wrong. We completely understand that. But we are happy to talk. We're continuing to talk about what pathways there are to helping individual organizations and groups add their finding aids or join the community archives directory, which Margaret's going to talk about today. We are really trying to figure out, how to do support for community archives. That's a low commitment way to help make collections discoverable, even if you don't have finding aids and descriptions that are publicly available. It's in the very early days, ARVAS was only open to people who had finding aids for collections that were publicly accessible. And that's not really the way we operate anymore. We are much broader in how we approach sharing information. We hope that we're going to be able to do more advocacy. A lot of us were involved in the NAFAN project, which was towards finding a national aggregator, finding aid aggregator, and the initial grant. And we have talked about what we might see our role being if a national aggregator were to come to life one day. Fingers crossed. And then, as we've said already, we are all volunteers. So we are now 25 years old. Wow. And that's a major accomplishment, but can also be a challenge. So one of our goals is always, how are we going to stay sustainable? What is it that we need to continue to persist? Where do we get those resources? How can we do more outreach and encourage participation so that we can continue to be successful? And I'm going to turn it back over to Margaret.
All right, let me make sure. Okay, so website overview, public pages, membership pages, and databases. Oh my. So we have a main website, and I'm going to show you some of this stuff on the fly here. And it includes information about who we are, our governance structure, membership directory, and some tools for members. And then the big thing is the search box for finding aids. And I want to explain the architecture of our website a little bit. We are actually have two websites. The website that I will show you in just a moment is the WordPress site. It's kind of like our portal or landing page. And then when you use the search box, it actually takes you to our database, which is behind the scenes, where you can see all the finding aids that we have. So once you enter your search term and click search, it's taking you into that database. And I'm just going to switch slides here for a second. And one of the things I'm going to show you is we have started a community archives directory. And so the community archives directory is meant to be a low barrier way for you to get your information out about your collection. So if you are a small historical society or a neighborhood group or a little collective of any sort, just, whatever you can imagine that happens to have some archival records that you want people to know about, to know that you exist, then you can share your information with us and we will put it in our directory, and we have a little map that goes with it. There is a form that you can fill out to join, and basically it gives us the information that you see here on the screen. I have the example of the Vinton History Museum for you to see. So I am going to go back and hopefully everyone can see that. So this is, Kira, can you give me a thumbs up if this is, thank you. So this is the website. This is that WordPress site I was talking about for Archival Resources of Virginia, the landing page. We've got some information here that you can click through, our content warning, and then you can just use this big search box in order to do your searches. But first, I'm going to show you, occasionally we have announcements, and if we have those will be here. As you can see, our announcements are a little dated because we haven't had any major ones in a while, but they were related to the changes in the name. If you go to About, it gives you a nice little summary about who we are. And we have some frequently asked questions kinds of things about, who should use this, which of course, short answer is everyone. Information about what exactly a finding aid is. How do you find the materials? Because occasionally it is confusing to folks when they come and find something. They think that these materials exist at an organization called ARVAS, but that is not the case. And so I will occasionally get emails to the member account where I help direct people to where the materials are actually housed. But very helpful page for a little bit more information. We have information about our governance structure, which includes our governance team with short bios and for each member of the governance team, as you see here. Go back and make everybody sick scrolling really fast. And we have a social media team that creates posts for Facebook and Instagram, and then technology and outreach, which is me and Kira. And then also you might be interested if you want to see a little more about what we've done. We have started posting our annual reports that you can read here. And then Kira mentioned this earlier. We have our principles of collaboration, which is kind of our governing document that we use. We updated it somewhat recently, but it outlines what all of the various roles are, information about the working groups, so on and so forth. So feel free to have a poke around and look at all of that. Resources for members is just what it says it is. This is information that our members who contribute finding aids can find information about how to create, how to upload, gives us some step-by-step directions, what to do if you need to delete something, where to go if you need to update things, some useful links, including a link to the Google form that Kira talked about, some other information. This are the ARVAS sessions, the recordings. You can go here to find them. We have a tutorial on how to create an EAD finding aid using NoteTab, and then some information about how you can join. But now I am going to skip back and go to our member list. So this list shows all of the institutions who have who contribute finding aids, although a few of them haven't contributed yet, but that's okay. But you can use this map to go through and find people, and then you can get their information, or you can scroll down here and we have this lovely long list of all of our members. And so you can expand and it gives you a point of contact information, some information about their primary collecting areas, a brief description of what they hold. This is my institution here. So it's a handy place for anyone who is looking to do some research to find out information about all the various organizations in and around Virginia and West Virginia that contribute to ARVAS. And then in that same style, we decided to create the Community Archives Directory, which I mentioned. And again, it's kind of the same model. We are starting this little map so that you can go and see them. We've only had 3 people submit so far, but that's enough to make a list. We're hoping that some of you on this webinar today might be interested in submitting your information. And again, having your name included or your organization or group here does not commit you to anything. It's just a way to get the word out about who you are and what you have so that people can contact you. So if you're looking for ways to engage, so that's a second way that we can make things available. And this one really is truly for those organizations that are just trying to get the word out about themselves. You're not going to have finding aids or things of that nature. You just want people to know that you exist and that you have information out there that could be useful to somebody. So that's kind of where that stands. I'm going to go back here and I'm just going to show very quickly what it looks like when you go to the database side. So I'm going to type in Girl Scouts. And I'm going to do it with parentheses so we can get results for Girl Scouts and just click search. And now you are in the database side of things. So you can see here, it's showing that we have 116 finding aids that come up with Girl Scouts somewhere in the collection. So it might actually be a collection that's all about the Girl Scouts, or it might be, this one like Betty Lou Alcock, World War II era scrapbook that contains some information related to the Girl Scouts. But you can see lots of different results. You can do a little further refining of your search here. This shows you all the different organizations that are represented that have materials. So if you just click, there we go. This is what the finding aid looks like when you go into it. And of course, at the top of every finding aid, it has information about the organization whom the records belong to. And you can see information about dates and biographical notes, scope and content that tells you what's in the collection. And then if you scroll all the way down, you get to your container list that tells you folder by folder or box by box, however people do this, and sometimes even item by item, what is included in a collection.
Can I jump in, Margaret, and add
Yes,
something to
of
that?
course.
I just want to jump in and say we technically do not have any requirements. If you have information that you're interested in including, I would say finding aid is a term we can use in a bunch of different ways. So we have some minimums that we would encourage your EAD file or your data to meet if you were going to put materials in. If you're going to put collection finding aids or collection guides in, but we don't technically have any requirements. So if you use the Google form, we hit some minimum requirements for describing archives of content standard. We're again using EAD, which does require or allows us to hit some sort of similarities, but you will, if you look at a bunch of different finding aids, you'll see depending on when something was encoded, how it was created, which institution it's from, you may see a lot of variation. So there is not one way to have your collection descriptions look other than certain things are formatted based on the EAD itself.
Thank you. And so if you wanted to go back, say you didn't want to do this search anymore, and you could go back to basic search, and you can enter your search term here, or you could limit by whatever institution you wanted to search to see what they have. So like, for instance, I just limited it to Virginia State, and this is all the finding aids that they have listed. We also do have an advanced search tool here that you can use. We have a browse function where it shows you everything. And as you can see, we've come a long way from the 1,200 or so finding aids we had in 2001. We've got a lot more now, over 46,000. But so this way you could come in and you could limit, again, you could limit by publisher. You could sort things in different ways here. If you click this as a member, it will pop up a username and password, and that's where you go to upload your finding aids. If you have finding aids to upload, we can have a place where you can report issues. And then if you want to get back to the WordPress site, you can either click on the logo here or go to About ARVAS, and it takes you back to the landing page for the WordPress site. So that's just a very basic run through, but wanted to give you an opportunity to see that, and especially again to show the member list. Again, this big long one here of contributors of finding aids, and then the community archives directory. Again, I will share with you hopefully these slides, we can get them to you, and it has a link to a Google form that you can fill out to be added to the community archives directory, or you can email us at this address right here and request that link, and we can send it to you and get you added. And also you can use this address to contact myself and Kira, or you can email us directly. But I'm going to take us back to our presentation now. So throw it back over to Kira.
Yeah. So before we go to Q&A, because we want to leave lots of time for that, we did just want to mention, and I feel like involved, I wrote this slide and then I was like, involved might seem like a scary word, but being discovered, getting found, getting your content shared in some little ways are things we can help with. So obviously one of those ways is the Community Archives Directory. If you want to hear about what's going on, there is a Viva Special Collections listserv, which is ARVAS's main communication method. It is not a list where you're going to get 50 emails a day. We primarily use it to share things like the Community Archives Directory or announcements about changes, like when we chose our new name, or when there's something big that we want to share or an event coming up. That is an option. Like I said, you will not get overwhelmed with communication. And then there's a couple of places you can find us on social media. There is a Facebook account for ARVAS. There is an Instagram account for ARVAS, and our social media team is sharing lots of content on those. And that can be anything from new finding aids that are posted to events that are happening to news that might be relevant to people in the ARVAS community. So there's some places you can find us.
And now we're going to open it up to questions. So feel free to put things in the chat, or I think you have the ability to perhaps unmute and talk to us. And also, before I stop sharing screen, want to show you that also we have information here, the website, the email address, our Instagram feeds, and then most importantly, mine and Kira's email addresses, should you need them, and we'll add some of this information into the chat as well. So happy to take your questions. Okay, we have a question. Does ARVAS have any webinars about how to write finding aids for graduate students or young professionals wanting to learn how to write them? The short answer there is no. However, we could help point you toward resources if you would like some, and I can see Kira wants to say something. So
well, what I want to say is that's actually a really great idea.
Yes.
And now I want to, Katie is nodding her head too. So somebody write that down, because I think that might be a thing that's kind of gonna that might be a prompt that we will take and run with. I know I would have been super happy to have that. I mean, I had experience before I came here in writing finding aids, but I definitely think we could put something like that together. I think there's a lot of collective knowledge in ARVAS that we could share for sure.
Well, you're getting some thumbs up on that, others in the chat. So I think that would be,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I
Yeah,
think
we could
have
definitely
our
work on that.
future project already now.
I get real excited about stuff like this when people want to talk about finding aids and EAD, and I'm like, yes, please. Like, I'm a big fan of standards and control vocabulary, so like, yes, you can lose me in those conversations for days.
Any other questions? Comments?
Let's see. Is there a pathway to move from a community member to a full membership as an organization begins to publish finding aids? Yes. If you want to start small and just, have your information listed, but you're not ready to actually create finding aids or have finding aids uploaded, that is perfectly fine. We're very flexible. As we said, Kira and I are very happy to have conversation with you around that. And if you get to a point where you think you can start producing finding aids and want to share them, then we can definitely bump you to that next level.
And we can also have a conversation with you at that point. If you just want to get on the community directory now, and 2 years from now, or 6 months from now, or 5 years from now, you're like, hey, we're ready to do more, we're happy to sit down again and have a conversation about, well, how do your finding aids exist? What is the best pathway for you? And what kind of support do you have to do that? Or what kind of support might you need? So there are very often people who get involved in stages because they have a conversation with us and then they're like, oh, no, we can't really do this right now. We have to wait until we have more resources, or it's the wrong time right now because it's the wrong time of year or whatever. So yeah, this can be done. This is if you want to go from one stage to another, that is entirely at your pace. And we are just here to try and help support you in that process. How are we communicating? Yeah, how are we promoting community membership? The Community Archives Directory is relatively new. We've been talking about it. Karen's nodding. We've been talking about this as an initiative for a long time, but it took us a little while to actually get to developing the actual form and wanting to keep it low barrier. I know at this point we are relying on the networks we have, so it's gone out to like the Viva listserv. We have been sharing it with either different people who have connections throughout the state. So, for example, I'm in Southwest Virginia, and there is a network that is also in this area focused on digitization of materials and cultural heritage institutions collectively. So I sent it out to that network to see if anybody from that network is interested. So right now, we're happy to have people spread the word. If you have connections or networks or resources or ideas, I think we're happy to hear them because we're kind of throwing it out to the networks and resources that we have.
There's no minimum number of finding aids to start with. If you have one, then you have one. And there are a few institutions that only have one or two finding aids up. That's fine.
And if you're, I think the other reason that's really great is if you are just starting to create finding aids, it can be helpful to think about, well, what is that finding aid to need? What do we want it to look like for ARVAS? And that may shape how you create more finding aids as you create them within your institution. So if you are just starting out and creating finding aids, period, there is no minimum. If you already have a bunch, but they're in disparate formats, we can talk about the different kinds of options.
And I see we have someone say they missed the very beginning. Can you give a small rundown, please? I will let you know that this is being recorded, so whatever you missed, you can go back and watch. But just to give you very quick summation, Archival Resources of the Virginias is a union database of finding aids for Virginia and West Virginia institutions that have joined us. It's free. You can upload your finding aids in several different ways and have them be available to the public for researchers to find. And then we have also started a community archives directory for those institutions, or not even institutions, but small groups who have materials that they would like folks to know about, but don't necessarily have the resources or ability to host finding aids of their own or anything of that nature. So they can have a place where people can go and find information about them.
Okay, and I just posted the link that the video will be posted to for this session in the chat. So we'll have that up as soon as we can make it available. Also, I put in there if you are not in the contact list for SHRAB, I put my email address in the chat, so you can email me and to say that you would like to be added to the SHRAB contact list for future webinars and opportunity trainings like this in the future. And so we can keep you up to date on what's going on with that. So again, just also going back to the recording, we do have recordings of previous SHRAB events. So if you would like, I encourage you to check those out. We did one on preservation, related to Preservation Month last year, and also on the topic of preserving your records. So I encourage you to check that out if you haven't already. But yes, the recording will be made available, and once it's up there, I will send out the link to everyone who's on the SHRAB contact list. So again, if you're not on the SHRAB contact list, look for my email here in the chat and send me an email, and I'll add you to it.
Just as a heads up, it usually takes our social media team a couple days to edit a video, put the like the title slides on and things like that. So it's probably gonna be a couple days, but we'll get it up there.
So any other questions or comments for the ARVAS folks?
We did have a question about even if not uploading, can we share a link that grants public access to our records? And the answer to that is yes. We can do that through your membership information either in the membership directory or the community archives directory, but also Kira and I have worked with folks to come up with some unique ways to be able to make their things available. And Kira alluded to that earlier. And I shared a link to a finding aid that we created for Jones Memorial Library. And it's basically a landing page that gives a summation of the types of things that they have in their collection, but it actually takes you to where their finding aids are hosted on an Omeka site at their library. Kira, I don't know if you want to say a little more about that.
Yeah, I'll just add, so, and this is like this was a midterm goal for us for this institution. We were like, how can we at least get some record in place for Jones Memorial in ARVAS so people understand that this is an institution that exists and has collections that are available to the public. Right now they have over 600 PDFs in an Omeka site already. So we worked out this plan. We said, well, what if we create a record, or a kind of bare bones record that has information about the kinds of things people might find, so that if they're searching, you know, based on keywords, if they were looking for Lynchburg genealogy, then this record would come up and then it would point them out to where the longer list and more detailed information for Jones Memorial is, to kind of direct researchers. So we're kind of using that record as a funnel. You know, and I think it's working. I haven't necessarily had anyone say it is or is not, but it's one way that we can sort of do that, because Jones Memorial at this point in time does not have the resources to take those 600 PDFs and turn them into EAD. ARVAS does not have the resources to help do that for them at this point in time. It really has to be a bigger project that they would have to work on. But we've talked about that, and like, it may be that a little bit of both happens at some point. If they get some of their finding aids encoded, they may add those to ARVAS as well, but we will still have this record that points to their resources. So if you are hosting your content yourself, or if someone is, we can create a record like this that essentially functions to point people, and we can draft the content to say whatever kind of keywords or things that you think people would use, that you would want to lead to your resources. That was a very convoluted way of saying that, but we can find a way to make that record reflect what your collection houses, and we can get those pieces together. And this is a pretty low barrier, because if we're just doing one record like this, I will help you with that, and probably do most of the work for you. We just have to work out the wording. So
Okay, any other questions or comments for the ARVAS folks? Okay, so thank you all for leading this webinar. Thank you, ARVAS. Thank you, Margaret, Kira, Karen King, who is vice chair but soon to be chair, if I'm correct.
Karen is our chair now.
Karen is the chair now.
Katie is our vice chair.
Okay, Karen's the chair, and Karen is also here at the Library of Virginia. So she's one of our state records archivists. Thank you for your leadership in this, and this resource it is a great place for, like, to just, if you're doing research on Virginia history and Virginia records, having this one-stop shop is a great place to go to. So I encourage all of you to take the opportunity to think about this more and contact ARVAS if you have any questions on the project. So this is going to conclude our webinar. And again, if you are not on the SHRAB contact list and you want to stay up to date on future opportunities like this, contact me. My email address is in the chat. We are having this has been recorded, so we will have it available hopefully in the next week. And then we will keep you updated on what's coming next down the pike. So thank you everyone for participating today. Have a great day.